Here's something that stops people in their tracks. Right now, today, a lot of retirees believe $1 million is the finish line, the magic wall, the number that decides whether life feels safe. But the strange part is this. For many households, that $1 million is not the whole picture. It can quietly behave more like $5 million once you understand what else is holding the plan up. Imagine walking into a house that looks simple from the street. One floor, plain paint, no fancy gate, nothing that screams wealth. Then you step inside and realize the plumbing is new, the roof is solid, the foundation is strong, and the monthly costs are low. That house may not look rich, but it can quietly be worth far more in real life than a flashy place held together by stress and debt. Retirement works like that. The real question is not, how much money do you have sitting in one account? The real question is, how much of your life is already supported before you even touch that account? Because once you see retirement that way, the whole conversation changes. $1 million on paper looks powerful. It looks complete. It looks like the kind of number people say out loud at family dinners because it sounds impressive and safe. But your life is not lived on paper. That is why some retirees with $1 million feel shaky, while others with the same amount quietly build what feels like a $5 million life. Not because they found a secret stock, not because they made some wild move, but because they understand something deeper. They understand income, guarantees, timing, taxes, housing, and the emotional weight of uncertainty. By the way, if you're finding this helpful, the subscribe button lives right down there, and I promise I only make videos worth watching. This is about helping you understand what those numbers actually mean in your real life, and that difference matters more than most people realize. Now listen, I am not saying $1 million always turns into $5 million in a brokerage account. That is not the point. I am saying a retiree with $1 million may already control enough income, benefits, and protected value that the practical support behind their life can act far larger than that headline number suggests. Think of your retirement in two parts, not one giant pile, two distinct piles. Pile 1 is income that keeps showing up no matter what. Pile 2 is the money sitting in your savings, your IRA, your 401k, your brokerage account, and your cash. Most people stare at pile 2, but pile 1 is often doing the heavier lifting. If your Social Security brings in $3,000 a month and a pension brings in another $2,000, that is $5,000 arriving before you sell a single investment. That is $60,000 a year. Over 20 years, that is $1.2 million in cash flow. And that does not even count cost of living adjustments or survivor benefits. Suddenly, that $1 million in savings is not standing alone. And that is where the title of this video starts making sense. A retiree with $1 million saved, plus a strong income floor, plus a paid-off home, plus lower taxes, plus time for compounding because they do not have to drain the account too fast, can quietly be living on top of economic strength that feels much closer to $5 million than one. Not in bragging rights, in real support. What do you think? Are most people actually behind on retirement, or are they just measuring it wrong? Keep that in your mind as we go, because this question quietly changes everything. The scoreboard most people use is simple, but simple and useful are not always the same thing. Let me show you with two people. Karen is 67. She spent 30 years as a public school counselor, lives in a paid-off brick house outside St. Louis, and has about $340,000 saved. If you only looked at the account, you might assume she is behind. A lot of people would. But Karen gets $2,800 a month from Social Security. She also gets a modest pension worth another $1,700 a month. Her property taxes are manageable. Her car is older but reliable, and she knows exactly what her core monthly life costs. She is not reckless. She is not rich, but she is steady. Now look at Linda. Linda is 65. She worked as a regional sales manager, saved a little over $1,100,000, and lives in a beautiful condo near downtown Denver. On paper, Linda looks like the winner. She is the kind of person retirement articles love to celebrate. But Linda still has a mortgage. Her HOA fees keep creeping up. She worries about helping her daughter with childcare costs. She checks the market more often than she wants to admit. And her monthly spending is heavy enough that almost everything depends on withdrawals. The account is big. The certainty is not. Here's the thing. Karen has less money and more certainty. Linda has more money and less certainty. It is not about who has more saved. It is about who has more certainty. And once you understand that, retirement stops looking like a contest and starts looking like a structure. Some things in life are heavy, but invisible, like carrying a backpack all day that no one else can see. You get used to the weight, but it still changes the way you move. That is what financial stress feels like in retirement. It quietly follows you even when your numbers look good to everyone else. A person can have a 7-figure balance and still feel hunted by their own future. Every market drop feels personal. Every medical bill feels like a warning. Every trip to the grocery store feels like another little reminder that prices are rising and time keeps moving. Money on paper does not automatically create peace in the body. That is why the real question is not, how big is the nest egg? It is, how much of your monthly life is already covered before you need the nest egg to rescue you? One question produces fear. The other produces clarity. One keeps you staring at a scoreboard. The other tells you whether your house is actually standing on solid ground. Quick question. Have you ever felt guilty about spending money in retirement? That feeling does not always come from being irresponsible. Sometimes it comes from not knowing how safe you really are. And when you do not know that, even ordinary spending can feel dangerous. Think of your income floor like the foundation of a house. Strong, mostly invisible, and doing the hardest work without needing applause. Your savings are more like the furniture. The furniture matters. It shapes comfort and freedom. But if the foundation is shaky, no amount of beautiful furniture makes the home feel safe. Your Social Security is part of that foundation. A pension, if you have one, is part of that foundation. An annuity for some people can be part of that foundation too. These things are quiet. They do not flash on your phone screen every morning. But quiet does not mean weak. In fact, quiet income is often the strongest part of the whole plan. Because when money keeps arriving every month, your nervous system settles down. You stop treating every market headline like an emergency siren. You stop waking up feeling like your future depends on what happened in Asia overnight or what the Federal Reserve said yesterday afternoon. Let me ask you something. Do you know what your monthly income will actually look like when you retire? Be honest with yourself. Not what your balance is, not what you hope the market will do. What your income will actually look like when the paycheck from work disappears. This is where so many good people quietly go off track. They spend years chasing the giant number and never stop to build the monthly picture. They know their account balance down to the dollar, but ask them what their bills will be, what their guaranteed income will cover, or how much gap they need savings to fill. And the answer gets fuzzy fast, and vague fear grows fast. Specific fear can be managed. If you know you have a $600 monthly gap, that is a problem you can work on. You can trim a category, delay a claim, pick up part-time income, hold extra cash, or rethink housing. But if all you know is that you have 1 million and it somehow still does not feel safe, your brain has nothing solid to work with. Real data and perceived data are not the same thing. Perceived data is the headline that tells you everyone needs $2 million, or they are doomed. Real data is your actual monthly cash flow, your actual housing situation, your actual tax bill, your actual spending habits, and whether your basic life is mostly covered before you touch the portfolio. That is the number that deserves your attention. Here is something to think about. If you found out today that you're actually on track, how would that change your week? Would you sleep better? Would you stop refreshing your account? Would you finally let yourself enjoy a lunch out without that little stab of guilt? Sometimes clarity is worth more than extra return. Let me show you what this can look like in plain English. Say your essential monthly expenses are $4,200. Housing, food, utilities, transportation, insurance, taxes, and basic medical costs. Not the dream trip, not the kitchen remodel, just the life that has to keep working month after month. Now say your Social Security brings in $2,900 and your pension brings in $1,600. That means your income floor is $4,500. Your core life is already covered, and you have a small cushion before you touch your investments. If you also have 1 million saved, that portfolio is not there to hold your entire life together. It is there to support, not to save. That changes everything. Because a portfolio that is not forced to cover the mortgage, the lights, the groceries, the insurance, and the doctor at the same time has room to breathe. It has time. It can keep growing. It can absorb bad years better. It can be used more thoughtfully. That is one reason 1 million can act like so much more. Here is something most people never consider. Do you know the difference between what you need and what you want in retirement? Most people blend them together without meaning to. Then every budget feels cruel. But there is power in knowing which expenses are the beams of the house and which ones are just nicer paint on the walls. You need shelter, you need food, you need utilities, transportation, insurance, medicine, and basic dignity. You may want a new SUV every few years, 4 flights a year, a full kitchen upgrade, large gifts for the grandkids, and dinners out 3 times a week. There is nothing wrong with wanting more. But peace starts when you know what can bend and what cannot. This matters because retirement is not just math. It is math filtered through emotion. A person who feels steady usually makes better decisions. A person who feels trapped by their own money may sell low, avoid spending they can safely afford, or swing the other way and spend carelessly just to feel free for a moment. Emotion quietly shapes the outcome. That is why a retiree with $1 million can end up far ahead of what the balance alone suggests. If that person has a low fixed cost life, solid guaranteed income, flexible wants, and the discipline that comes from feeling grounded, the account can keep working instead of being drained by panic. Compounding loves calm. Panic interrupts it. Now let us talk about Social Security timing, because this is another place people get pulled into the wrong question. The real question is not, what is the smartest sounding age to claim? The real question is, what decision best supports your life right now and later on? That is a very different conversation. Think of your benefit like a faucet. Behind that faucet is a pipe you have been filling your whole working life. Every paycheck, every payroll tax, every year you kept showing up to work, it all helped build pressure in that pipe. When you turn the faucet on at 62, the water starts sooner, but the monthly stream is smaller. Wait longer, and the monthly flow gets stronger. If you wait until full retirement age, the benefit is larger. If you wait until 70, larger still. But life is not lived inside a spreadsheet. For one person, claiming early creates breathing room they truly need. For another, waiting strengthens the income floor in a way that protects them for decades. The best age is not a trophy. It is a decision. Quick check. Do you know your full retirement age for Social Security? Most people do not. And that one detail can quietly change how they see the whole plan. Because if your monthly benefit shifts, your gap shifts. And if your gap shifts, the role your savings needs to play shifts too. Here's another part people skip. If you are married, Social Security is not just your check, it is also survivor planning. If one spouse earned much more, delaying that higher benefit can quietly protect the surviving spouse later. Not because it wins a math contest, because it supports the household if life gets hard. And pensions deserve more respect than they usually get. A lot of people brush past their pension because it does not show up as a flashy account balance. But if you had to buy that same monthly income on your own, the price might shock you. A pension that pays $20,000 or $30,000 a year for life can represent a very large economic asset hiding in plain sight. This is one of the biggest reasons retirees with $1 million can quietly function like they have much more. They are not just holding $1 million in an account. They are standing on top of an income machine they did not have to build from scratch in retirement. Social Security, pension income, cost of living adjustments, and sometimes survivor protection are doing serious work in the background. Think about this. If guaranteed income was the only thing that mattered, would you feel better or worse about where you stand? Many realize they have been undervaluing the strongest part of their plan, not because it is small, because it is familiar. Now let us bring in inflation, because inflation is like an ice cube sitting in the sun. It does not melt in one dramatic moment. It quietly shrinks, drips, and disappears while you are busy looking at other things. Inflation works the same way on your grocery bill, your insurance, your property taxes, your healthcare costs, and those random repairs that never arrive on schedule. That is why cost of living adjustments matter more than people sometimes think. No one throws a party because a benefit rose a little. But those quiet increases help your income keep pace with a world that keeps getting more expensive. They do not erase inflation, but they help keep the floor from sinking quite as fast. At the same time, retirees often underestimate boring expenses. Not the dream vacation, not the once-a-year splurge, the boring stuff, the new water heater, the dental work insurance barely touches, the hearing aids, the rise in property taxes, the tires, the appliance that dies on a Tuesday, the roof that does not care whether the market had a bad quarter. I want to know, have you ever felt like you were doing everything right but still felt behind? You are not alone. Sometimes that feeling is not a warning. Sometimes it is just the result of comparing a real-life plan to a fake standard that was never built around your life in the first place. And there is another risk here that sounds technical but is actually simple. It is called sequence of returns risk. That phrase makes people's eyes glaze over, but stay with me. Imagine trying to fill a bathtub while someone quietly pulls the drain open every few minutes. If the water pressure is weak early, the tub never fills the way you hoped. Retirement can work like that. If the market drops early and you are also withdrawing from your investments, the damage can be heavier than people expect. Not just because of the loss, because the losses and the withdrawals hit at the same time. A bad early stretch can quietly erode a portfolio faster than the same bad stretch later on. This is another reason guaranteed income is so powerful. The more your core life is covered by Social Security, a pension, or other stable income, the less pressure you place on the portfolio during ugly years. That does not remove market risk, but it reduces the power that risk has over your dignity, your choices, and your peace. Let me ask you, have you and your spouse ever actually talked about what happens if one of you is gone? I know that is not a fun question. But it is one of the kindest conversations you can have, because a retirement plan does not just have to work for two people growing older together. It also has to work if one person dies first. What happens to Social Security then? What happens to the pension? Does one check disappear? Does the surviving spouse keep the larger benefit? Do housing costs really fall that much? Does the mortgage stay? Too many couples quietly assume it will somehow work out, and then life changes and the income picture looks very different. This is not pessimism, it is realism. And in this case, realism is empowering because it gives you a chance to prepare while you still have options. Review beneficiaries, understand survivor rules, make sure both people know where the accounts are, what bills exist, and how the household would function if one person had to carry it alone. Now, I want to come back to the title because this is where people either get it or miss it. When I say some retirees with 1 million actually end up with 5 million, I do not mean a magic investment trick. I mean that once you add the lifetime value of Social Security, the value of a pension, the protection of a paid-off home, lower withdrawal pressure, tax advantages, and continued growth, the real support under the plan can be far larger than the statement balance. Say a couple has 1 million invested, their Social Security together is $48,000 a year. A pension adds $24,000 a year. Over 25 years, that is $1.8 million of income before any adjustments. Add a paid-off house worth $400,000, and now you are already looking at over $3 million in value and support before we even talk about what happens to the portfolio if it keeps compounding, because they are not draining it too hard. If the portfolio grows modestly over time, if withdrawals stay light because the income floor is strong, and if survivor planning protects the household well, the practical value of that retirement can start looking much closer to 4 or 5 million in total support. Again, not as bragging rights, as life support, as options, as safety, as room to breathe. Here is a question. If you had to choose between more money or more certainty, which would it be? Most people say more money at first. Then life happens. And suddenly, certainty starts looking like the luxury they really wanted all along. Because certainty changes behavior. A person who knows the bills are covered is less likely to panic sell, less likely to chase risky returns late in life, less likely to underspend out of fear and accidentally turn retirement into a long season of self-denial. The math matters. But how the math feels in your body matters too. You may already have what people with millions are searching for: a paid-off house, lower spending, a pension, 2 Social Security checks, a spouse with similar habits, fewer surprises, a life that does not demand constant upgrading. Those things do not look glamorous, but they can create the kind of stability many large accounts never manage to buy. And the opposite is true too. You can have 1.5 million, 2 million, even more, and still feel one ugly stretch away from trouble if everything depends on withdrawals. The costs are high, the housing is heavy, the family obligations keep growing, and your plan only works when the market behaves. Big balances and deep peace are not always the same thing. That is why the real question is not, how do I get to a giant number that impresses strangers? It is, how do I build a retirement life that supports my actual days? The answer might include saving more. It might include delaying Social Security. It might include downsizing, paying off debt, or protecting a pension decision. But the target has to match the life. I want to throw this out there. What is the one thing about retirement that worries you most? For some people, it is healthcare. For others, it is running out of money. For others, it is becoming a burden, losing a spouse, or getting hit with costs they did not see coming. Your biggest fear usually points straight at the part of the plan that needs attention. So what do you do with all this? First, get brutally honest about your monthly needs. Not guesses, not round numbers you pulled out of thin air. Real numbers from the last 12 months of life. Housing, food, utilities, transportation, taxes, insurance, medicine, gifts, repairs, subscriptions, and those sneaky categories that quietly add up. Second, separate needs from wants. Shelter, food, power, healthcare, insurance, and transportation are one group. Extra travel, generous giving, frequent dining out, hobbies, and upgrades are another. This is not about becoming joyless. It is about knowing what can bend if life gets tight and what truly has to be protected. Third, map your reliable income in plain English. Write down what Social Security would pay at 62, at full retirement age, and at 70. Write down the pension. Write down any part-time income you truly expect. When your income floor becomes visible, fear often gets smaller because the foundation stops feeling abstract and starts feeling real. Fourth, stress test the plan. What if inflation stays sticky for a few years? What if the market drops early? What if one spouse dies first? What if the car lasts 1 year less than you hoped? You are not doing this to scare yourself. You are doing it because a plan that only works when life behaves perfectly is not a plan. It is a wish. Fifth, give your savings a job. Some of that money is for emergencies, some is for travel, some is for healthcare surprises, some is for filling a monthly gap. When every dollar has a role, the balance stops feeling like one vague pile of hope and starts acting like a useful tool. That shift is powerful, and if you are married or partnered, do survivor planning now. Review beneficiaries. Understand what happens to the pension. Understand how Social Security changes after a death. Make sure both people know where the money is, what the bills are, and what steps need to happen if one person is suddenly gone. That conversation is not dark. It is loving. Here's the part I really want you to hear. $1 million is a useful number. It is not a useless goal, but it is also incomplete. If you worship the number, it can quietly distort the whole plan. It can make you feel behind when you are actually stable, or safe when you are actually exposed. Paper is not life. Life is monthly. Retirement is not about how much you've accumulated. It's about whether your income can support your life. That sentence sounds simple because it is. And some of the most important truths are simple. You do not need a more complicated answer. The goal is not just to survive retirement. The goal is to enjoy it, to wake up without that low hum of fear in the background, to replace the tires, fix the roof, see the grandkids, or take the trip without feeling like every choice might break the future. That kind of freedom does not come only from having more. It comes from understanding more. If the system only rewards you with almost enough, you will spend your entire life chasing more. But if you understand your numbers, if you build your income, if you define your life on your terms, you do not chase anymore. You decide. And that is the shift from fear to clarity, from chasing to choosing, from not enough to enough. If this video made you think differently about your retirement, subscribe. The next one goes even deeper. And if this gave you a new perspective, even just a little, hold on to that, because the more clearly you see your retirement now, the stronger and calmer your future can become.